I think I always wrote, even when I remember myself when I was maybe 3 years old. I think I have the same questions that I have now. But when I started to write really with a pen or pencil and paper, when I was about maybe 11 years old, it the time when I tried to answer that questions that I already had. And answering these questions, I began to understand something. Just began because I thought always I don't understand anything. As the same, I think now. So just writing, I try to understand and make kind of organize the chaos that we live in. Uh, of course, we have such a great tradition, as you know. It's difficult to think what I mean. The writers, classical writers like Pushkin, of course, or Lermontov. It was a kind of air for me. I even didn't think, or I don't think I've been influenced. Of course, I've been, but it's like you don't think I've been influenced by air and maybe rain that comes every day, like it happened in St. Petersburg. Of course, you do, but you don't think about it. And actually, when I was about 15 years old or 14 years old, when I opened just the books that been in the shelf of my mother, and I thought it's very special, and because they've been very small, and there was something special about it. It was poems of Anna Akhmatova, and then also Marina Tsvetaeva, and it actually was then I found Mandelstam. So and I it was kind of my secret. I wrote them, and my mother didn't know that because it was nothing forbidden for that. But I don't know. It was kind of my secret that I shared, and it was so exciting. And I think, yeah, maybe this, of course, last century called silver century in Russian literature influenced me a lot. Yeah. No, of course I don't write full time. I don't have anything stable in my life. I don't have job or stable job. Many jobs in my life, so I have always to find time. But actually, how to say, I sacrificed everything to my writing because actually this is the reason why I don't have stable life. And so I manage. Yeah, I have to all the time think about bills and rent and all things, and have also two children. They're grown up now, but anyway. So yeah, I try to manage the nighttime mostly. You know, I have some friends. For example, I'm very friend of Nathan Zach. It's one very important poet, and also I knew other Israeli poets. And it's just very small country, and it's easy to know people from your world, and they also happy to know you. Knowing you and but of course Hebrew wasn't my language, and I have to learn it, and I was very happy to learn it because I thought I kind of remembering it. That's like I knew it before, and it was so strong for me, and I love Hebrew language. But of course I can't write in it. It's impossible. I could check the translations. Now it's worse because I almost lost it for my Italian. It's 13 years I speak just Italian, and Italian don't speak other languages. So that's like almost Americans. And but I translated when I lived in Israel. My Hebrew and also my English were very good, and I translate Edgar Keret, for example. It's a very important writer also, and other things. And I used to write even, but not poems or prose, just because I studied history of art. So I had to write for studies, of course. Yeah, for in Italian I translate myself, It's so strange. It's very strange. And sometimes, of course, I ask people the mother tongue, how should it be, and we discuss together. And that's what we working together. It's very very important and very interesting. Also, the suggestions and that I like. I wrote just few short stories, and suddenly it had success even. Uh, but I think it's. I don't want to be. It's just a kind of a joke. I've been. I'm. Don't. I want to say that seriously. But sometimes I think, for a Russian poet, I mean, it's so easy to write anything, because you're coming from a so strong tradition and so how's exacting yeah thing, and so you could write even in Chinese, you know. I don't know, I'm just kidding. It's my other part, because we all of us have many parts of inside of us, so it's my absurd part of my being, and it's a mix of and absurd language and also real language, and few characters that actually some of them really exist. And I used to go to one bar. It was a very funny bar in center of Rome with one of my friend, also Italian poet. Unfortunately, died now. And I just observing the life there in this bar, and it was so funny. And then actually, it's also very dramatic operetta, but I thought it should be with the music, and I'm looking for a composer. Yeah, it's very difficult, of course, for a person that always wrote poetry to begin to write prose. And I mean, of course, I wrote essays and now short stories. It's different, because in the prose and novel you have so many things. It's a question of building, not just the words. I as poet, I think always all the time about the words, about the rhythm, about the music. And it's so difficult, because I also have to think and go with characters. Actually, it's not psychological, maybe prose, but there are many characters, and actually some of them also should be most half real. And I think it's kind of it's not just literary work for me, because it's a testimony work, because it's about immigration, about some difficult destinies and lives, and because I also passed through that. I had two immigrations that was so difficult, and it is. And all my characters, they are marginal people, and some of them even Italians, but they are also strange and special. So then this character mixing and. Yeah, I think now I begin to mix it, how to say, consciously, because I want to. Sometimes I mix it and then I understood it's mixed, and sometimes I just, for many year being so far from Russia, sometimes I can't say I forget my language, but sometimes it seems so normal to have this word that I just invented, and then I discovered doesn't exist. Maybe exists very similar, very close. But I think it's good for poetry. Yeah, for poetry it's okay. Maybe for life it's not. Of course, we are in a strong dialogue, and we know about each other, and we still in the Russian we're very in Russia we are very close to each other, and we have a solid blog and magazines, and I publish always in Russia in the same publisher house that my friends publishing, so I know their work and they know mine. Yeah. I like some Italian writers also, yeah, and now I'm translating Zanzotto, and I like him very much. Also, I like Elio Pagliarani. I like him very much. From Russians, I could tell too many things. We will not have time. I could give you a website but it's in Russian. I hope something will be translated or already translated. I don't want put now the name of Brodsky, and that everybody knows him. So I mean, you ask me about new writers, probably, right? Yeah. I think my poetry and writing in general is very visual. I think also I'm beginning from visual world, because the art for me is very important, and I thought also to study, go to fine arts. I mean, I used to draw, and I thought also to do design, and so it's very important for me, and that's why maybe cinema also became so important, because also the movement for me is very important, and in general life, and also in what I'm writing, because I always use many kinds of movements, and you could feel it. Maybe you didn't understand what I read in Russian, but you felt maybe it's changing all the time, the rhythm. It's not just one meter, many of them. So cinema, it's perfect because it's visual and it's also movement. And yeah, I love cinema, and I could just look at all day, but if I would have time. You know, actually, I decided to go to Tartu University. It was in Estonia. I live in St. Petersburg at about 7 hours in the bus, so it's not far for us. As for you, also for our distance, for Italy, it will be just end of the world. But anyway, and because it was one of the best university at the time, and it was also Yuri Lautman, one of the famous, actually famous at that time, most famous researcher and professor, and but I didn't know anything about semiotic, of course, when I was 18 years old and 19 years old. I knew he wrote books about history of Russian literature, and I read it. And for example, analysis of poetic text, analysis, not analysis, how to say, to I forgot the word. Okay, analysis. Okay, analysis of poetic text. And I didn't think it's semiotic. I just like it because I wrote poetry, so I thought, oh, it's just for me. And I wanted to. I thought, if I have to write, and I thought I'm writer, I will be writer, so I have to learn more about literature. So I went for that, and then I studied at the beginning the literature of 18th century, and just after that I began to understand something about semiotics. So it wasn't so conscious. Some of the critics call my poetry metaphysic, and I think maybe they're right, because I always feel it's few realities in the same moment, and but in a very physical way. I don't like abstract poetry. Actually, when I write about this metaphysic world, it's very physically built. I mean, with our how to say rules, our rules of this world. Maybe it's wrong, because maybe that, but anyway, I feel it all the time, and it's very important for me. Yeah. No, actually, it's not first, but first in this area, and it was very interesting, and I like very much many things in nature, very much, and every day I go to take a walk on the riverside, and to see just the trees, and yeah, I like it very much. I like the possibility to know so many people from so many parts of the world. Of course, I think it's very banal. Everybody told it, but it's true, and it's a really big gift that international writing program could give us and gave us. And so I'm happy that I met Fabienne, for example, Onia. And now for me, that part of the world, of course, Fabienne is from France, okay? She's just, but not just, she's more than that. So now for me, this part of the world, it's not just anonym, you know? I know who live there, and I will be always in contact, I'm sure about it. I think I always wrote, even when I remember myself when I was maybe 3 years old. I think I have the same questions that I have now. But when I started to write really with a pen or pencil and paper, when I was about maybe 11 years old, the time when I of course, we have such a great tradition, as you know. It's difficult to think what. I mean, the writers, classical writers like Pushkin, of course, or Lermontov. It was a kind of air for me. I even didn't think, or I don't think I've been influenced. Of course, I've been, but it's like, you know, you don't think, I've been influenced by air and maybe rain that comes every day, like it happened in St. Petersburg. Of course, you do, but you don't think about it. And actually, when I was about 15 years old or 14 years old, when I opened just the books, that I tried to answer that questions that I already had. And answering these questions, I began to understand something. Just began because I thought always I don't understand anything. As the same, I think now. So just writing, I try to understand and make kind of organize the chaos that we live in.